Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, earlier today I did a video and I said that I would be doing one on Mrs. Humza Yousaff. It's all to do with the reversal of the council tax. Instead of increasing it, he decided off the in the middle of nowhere just to cancel that rise and to freeze it for everybody. And I said in that original video this morning that he didn't tell anyone. Didn't tell the councils, his cabinet, the Greens, nobody. Most important, of course, he didn't tell his wife. Now, his wife is also a politician. She's a councillor for the SNP in Dundee. So at least she's a councillor where she lives. Unlike him, who has to travel halfway across the country to get to his constituency. That's only because he doesn't want to live in his constituency, because it's pretty bad. Anything controlled by Humza Yousaff, it's going to be bad, isn't it? But anyway, his wife, Nadia, she is someone who's probably quite annoyed with him right now. And it makes you wonder if all is well in the Yousaff household. I think it's telling, of course, she doesn't take his name. But then, to be honest, I suppose if anything goes wrong, it's easier to just do a quick midnight flit and pretend that she doesn't know him. Which is increasingly likely, because just a couple of weeks ago, she voted to increase council tax in Dundee, where she is a member of the council. And now he has basically overridden her in an act of selfless self-sacrifice, as he gives up his second marriage, it could be, over a political matter. Anyway, we'll take a look at this, see why he might be in trouble, why he might be on the old sofa for the next few nights. Here. So, Humza Yousaff's current wife voted to raise council tax just weeks before the First Minister's freeze plan. Nadia el-nakla spoke of the importance of local authority levies rising to combat what she claimed was a £700 million of UK government cuts. I mean, she's claimed it, but it's actually not true. What's happening is that the SNP have decided not to pass on the money that they are given, rather than blaming it all on Westminster. It's the usual SNP tactic. Like her husband, she tells a lot of lies, particularly the one where she said, yes, of course I'll marry you, I love you. Because that obviously now may not be quite as true as it once was, if ever it once was. The First Minister's wife said raising council tax was vital to protect public services, only a month before he announced they would be frozen. Nadia el-nakla, a councillor for Dundee West End, voted in favour of raising the local authority levies by as much as 22.5% last month. Goes to show what she thinks. So the level of economic ignorance, it's, you got a married couple. If they have children together, those children, I mean, the genes were there. These children won't be able to spend their pocket money. They'll be that economically naive, won't they? Anyway, during a council meeting on September the 4th, el-nakla claimed council tax rises were an important way in what she claims was a mitigation of £700 million of cuts from the UK government. She said that, but as I say, it's actually not true, is it? But the SNP conference on Tuesday, her husband, Humza Yousaff, stunned council leaders when he announced a freeze to next year's council tax, unbeknownst to her. Now, if she didn't know about it, and, I'm presuming they're still sharing a bed up until Tuesday night at the very least. El-nakla told of her colleagues, of course, an overhaul of council tax would be amazing, but the cost of that during a cost of living crisis would be a phenomenal expense. What the government is trying to do is raise money to give it to local authorities to mitigate the cuts that we're facing. Well, to be honest, the cuts you're facing are the cuts made by your husband's government, because the UK government does not give the Scottish councils money directly. It gives the money to the SNP government to then hand to the councils. Perhaps going forward, it would be better if that money didn't go to the SNP government to hand out to the councils, but went directly to the councils. Would that be better? That way you don't have any excuses and you can't blame anyone, can you? It means, of course, that the SNP government couldn't skim off the top for all the stuff they want to spend it on. They won't like that. Anyway, people get good services. We want to continue that by mitigating the £700 million worth of cuts that I've invented by generating money for local authorities. Yousaff's astonishing, Flagship Policy announcement caused outrage. Yeah, outrage amongst the Greens who want it up, his cabinet colleagues who were never told about it and want it raised. Words are hard. Pick one, David. Certainly the councils, because the councils have this Verity House agreement that was being breached. They're now going to be in an area of ill will. They're under no obligation now. If he's going to break that, why should they stick to it? KLER are up in arms. Everyone's up in arms. The only person who seems happy with it is Humza Yousaff. And that was only for about the 10 seconds after he walked off stage and then got accosted and told exactly what he'd done. And also the actual cost of it. £500 million minimum. Possibly as high as £1 billion. How on earth is he going to afford it? He's already $1 billion in the hole. He's already committed to an extra £300 million for the NHS. There's bits and bobs all over the place that he's already committed to. It's going to be, that black hole is going to be somewhere in the region of £2.5 billion. Where's he getting the money? He hasn't costed it. Nobody knows. Neil Gray had to go and explain what he was going to do to raise the money, and then just sat there like a guppy at feeding time, you know, like that. No words were coming out. He just looked at the camera and was like, well, we're going to. And it was all, let me see what I can invent off the top of my head. He didn't have a clue. But then none of them have got a bloody clue, have they? That's the problem. Anyway, getting back. KLER, the umbrella body which represents the majority of Scotland's local authorities, said Yousaff had committed a serious breach of an agreement to give advance notice of major decisions that would affect councils. This, of course, is the Verity House agreement. Shona Morrison, an SNP councillor and KLER chief, said members expressed extreme disappointment that the First Minister chose to undermine the spirit and letter of the Verity House agreement so soon after it being signed. Now, the other thing, of course, is he claims, they all claim, oh, it was discussed several days ago in committee and all that, or in cabinet and whatever. If it had been, and I mentioned this earlier, if it had been, there would have been minutes. The civil servants present would have minuted the meeting. That would have been minuted. They would have known, and then they would have immediately went, flags up, Verity House agreement, we have to let the councils know it's part of that agreement. The councils didn't know, which means the civil servants didn't tell them. And if the civil servants didn't tell them, it's because the civil servants didn't know. And if the civil servants didn't know, it means it wasn't discussed in the cabinet meeting. And therefore, everything he says is a complete and utter lie. And he's trying to get out of the fact that it's a lie by saying that he talked about it days ago. Where in actual fact, what he did is 20 minutes before the speech, back of an envelope, what can I possibly do? These people just assume that we're stupid. But we are not stupid, and we will not be taken for fools. Anyway, Labour's finance spokesman, Michael Marra, MSP, said, it seems that the First Minister's wife can be added to the list of people who were not consulted on by the SNP's screeching council tax U-turn. If he isn't talking to his wife, it makes you wonder what kind of relationship they have. I think it is, like so many in the SNP, a little marriage of inconvenience, isn't it? They actually have to be together for political reasons, but I don't think there's much love lost between them. Anyway, the fact is that the SNP incompetence is blowing a hole in council budgets, with cuts looming as a result. They are going to be closing swimming pools, sports centres, outreach centres. They're going to be closing offices. There'll be no building maintenance or reduced building maintenance. There'll be reduced grounds maintenance. You know, there's going to be so many things. They might drop waste disposal instead of fortnightly to 3 weekly. Who knows? The way it's going, it wouldn't surprise me. The councils have got no money. He's just frozen it. Inflation's still going through the roof. It's ridiculous. Anyway, an SNP spokeswoman said, with Westminster failing to take real action on the cost of living crisis, bullshit. I said of their making, bullshit. Try Russia invading Ukraine being the cause of all of this. Thank you. The First Minister has delivered certainty and real action by freezing council tax bills next year to protect family budgets. But it won't, though, will it? It won't when the families haven't got access to things locally and have to go further afield to get them. It's a load of rubbish. And also, there are going to be a lot of people fired and laid off. That ain't going to be much use to them, is it? All those council workers all of a sudden don't have a job because no rise, frozen, and they can't afford to keep them. So there you go, Mrs. Yousaff, angry at her husband because he didn't tell her what he was doing after she voted to raise council tax, admittedly by 22.5%. And there's only two things there. There's only two words that spring to mind when I see that. Greedy cow. Anyway, I shall round off and I shall come up and we shall laugh at the Humzas as they sit there silently looking at each other. Side eye, like that. Like the old side eyes are sitting there, trying to watch the television, trying to pretend that they still have a relationship. Watching as one undercuts the other and the other one is viciously vindictive over it. Don't give that marriage long. Anyway, coming up. Now, given who the vast proportion of my audience is, I do understand that this person is perhaps not the best person to be quoting. But Edward I once said, "A man does good riddance when he rids himself of a turd." And I think Nadia el-nakla could be doing good business herself if she rids herself of a turd. And I think it's about time the whole of Scotland also got rid of a turd and did their good business for the day. Oh dear, dear. It's not very good when a man gainsays his wife. I speak from experience, of course. My wife, I never disagree with her. I've learnt my lesson. Anyway, I shall stop. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and just do as your wife wants. It's just easy life, isn't it? It's an easy life. Bye.